winter coming, it may be advisable, indeed they should convince them, that they maybe shouldn't come to the city of Chicago during the winter, and that there are other places in the country they can go, and the federal government ought to be helping to manage the logistics so people go to places where they can survive through the winter.
It's Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday. Just some of the comments he had about the issue of the non-citizens arriving in Chicago and how to properly care for them. And he even bragged about how much of state tax dollars he's spending on the issue compared to Chicago and the amount of money that's being spent there. Welcome back. It is Bishop on Air, and you can follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air. But I definitely want to just take a few moments here before we wrap things up today about the migrant issue, all right, and the tens of thousands and millions of dollars and hundreds of millions of dollars it's costing taxpayers in the state of Illinois because of non-citizens being across the border into southern Texas, and then those communities not able to take on the millions that have come across in the past 2 years, deciding to send them to self-proclaimed sanctuary cities and states like Illinois and Chicago. But it's got a cost, of course, and the taxpayers are picking up a substantial amount of that cost, including the cost for health care, despite the governor aiming to suspend new enrollees to the taxpayer-subsidized health care benefits, doctor's visits, hospital visits that have been raised here. Those obviously come with costs, and the expectation is it's going to cost more than $850 million when the governor only budgeted $550 million for that. But that's just for the health care. You got to talk about also the cost of housing migrants at hotels and now base camp tents, and you've got heated buses with the winter coming. Here's Governor J.B. Pritzker being asked about a variety of things on that front when he was at an unrelated event throughout the state.
And we provide the wraparound services for these folks who are not allowed to work. We are going to have people that have work authorizations going to work soon, but that only covers a certain percentage. A little over half of the folks who have come here will be eligible to work over time as they receive their work authorizations. But there are lots of folks who've arrived here, didn't have any work authorization. They're here legally. I want to be clear with people who call them illegals. These are not, nobody is illegal, by the way, but they're not undocumented. They're here legally. And it is an obligation, I think, in a humanitarian crisis for us to step up and make sure that people aren't starving, or that they have a place to stay, that they get the, basic health care that they need. So the state has been providing most of that. The shelter piece has been the city of Chicago. And we've supported the city of Chicago with direct dollars to do that. We also have spent almost 3 times as much, 2 to 3 times as much as they have, on all the wraparound services, including immigration lawyers, because it's important for us to get them the authorization so they can go to work, so they will no longer need to stay in the places that they're in now.
Now, I did get an indication that some state workers with the Department of Human Services are being asked to volunteer to go work with those Venezuelans in the states that have temporary protected status. Remember, it's those who arrived before July 31st, I believe, because they came from, a communist country, right? But all of a sudden they say July 31st is, you got to go back. So they're going to be working to return those or deport those Venezuelans here after July 31st. But those before July 31st, they've been given TPS, temporary protective status. That means they can, have protection from deportation while they work out their asylum claims. But in order to do that, they got to get immigration attorneys. So the governor's saying that their state taxpayers are paying for that. But are they also having Department of Human Services staff move from the services for state tax-paying residents to shift those responsibilities the state worker may be having there at DHS to now focusing on helping these Venezuelan TPS recipients get their papers together so that they can ultimately get a lawyer to file them and so on. I have yet to get a response from the department on that, but the governor talks about the importance of making sure that these resources are available.
So I'm proud of the work that the city, that the state has done to support the city. yeah, there doesn't appear to be a supplemental that will go through the legislature this veto session, but the state is going to continue to try to provide the wraparound services through our Department of Human Services. And we're doing a lot of things that you all don't see, but I'll just give you an example. I have had numerous conversations with the federal government, both the Department of Homeland Security and the White House, about at the border, making sure that if there is an effort, and there has been, by the governor or various mayors in Texas to load people onto buses to Chicago, that the federal government should at least intervene to communicate with those folks who are being told to get on a bus to Chicago and whatever else they're being told, that we are doing everything we can for the folks who are here, but we do not have enough shelter. With winter coming, it may be advisable, indeed, they should convince them that they maybe shouldn't come to the city of Chicago during the winter, and that there are other places in the country they can go. And the federal government ought to be helping to, manage the logistics so people go to places where they, can survive through the winter in a way that clearly is more difficult if you come to a place like Chicago. And I would say the same about New York and the same about Denver as we hit snow and winter.
So clearly the governor has a lot to say about the non-citizen crisis and the taxpayer cost, and it's costing hundreds of millions of dollars. I anticipate the cost to be well over $1 billion, especially when you take into consideration the housing costs, the healthcare costs, and even the costs to get immigration attorneys for those with temporary protected status. Senate Minority Leader John Curran was touching on this a bit when he was talking about agency dysfunction, and here's what he had to say.
All spring, we heard the governor say that he could get costs under control if he was just given the tools he needed.
And he's talking about the healthcare stuff.
In multiple hearings, his administration defended the program, assuring the legislature that he could contain costs to the budgeted $550 million. Despite repeated Senate Republican warnings that the program would exceed that budget by a great amount, the Senate Republicans voted to give the governor his requested tools and authority to rein in costs on the program.
And that included the authority to make copays a requirement. And it was going to be, I think, like $100 for doctor visits and then like $250 for hospital visits or hospital stays, I believe it was. They tried implementing that. They then pulled it back and said the service providers need to pay back those dollars or vice versa. So you've got some interesting things that have happened. We're several months into the fiscal year, and those copays, cost-saving measures, taxpayer cost-saving measures have not been implemented. But now, November 6th, it's gotten to the point where they're reaching their cap of $16,500 at 65 and older non-citizens getting health care coverage. They're suspending enrollment. So regardless, the $550 million that they proposed to have in the budget, it's projected to go over that. Again, here's Senator Curran.
Now HFS is reporting program costs will hit a whopping $832 million this fiscal year, which is 50% above the budgeted $500 million for this program. This failure to implement copays is disrespectful to all Illinois taxpayers who are left with the bill for the governor's mismanagement.
All right, so there you go. That is a lot to take in. Hopefully you are informed about the latest happenings in and around Illinois. I got to get out of here, though, because, well, I got to head down to the Capitol and monitor that hearing with the Illinois State Police. Again, if you are watching this live, be sure to switch over to thecentersquare.com/Illinois, and you'll be able to watch the proceedings of the Illinois State Police in their first public hearing on the gun and magazine ban registry. All right, so that will be live here in just a little over an hour, but you can go and check out the website, get all the news you need. Again, thecentersquare.com/Illinois. It's where my full-time gig is. I'm the associate editor. We've got great reporters in Kevin Bessler and Andrew Hensel and Glenn Minnis providing some content. So stuff that you need to know about. So check it out, and an entire team with the Center Square. Not just Illinois, we've got the Center Square National in Washington, D.C., and states all over. So check it out, all right? It's thecentersquare.com. Have yourself a great day. We'll be back tomorrow with a review of what happened at today's public hearing.